everyone, my name is Judy. With Christmas round the corner, what better way to celebrate than to serve our family and loved ones with a warm, hearty soup that we cook from scratch. Now today I'm going to share with you a really easy family recipe. Now I've been cooking this since my kids were very young, and guess they are now already in their 30s. So this is called the family mushroom soup. Now, first I have got some butter, and that's the Anchor butter. I'm using the New Zealand Anchor butter, and this is from the cows, free-range cows in New Zealand. First, what we do is to just melt the butter over medium heat, okay? And then I throw in some chopped onions, some yellow onions, to give it a nice aroma. So first we just melt the butter, alright? And the butter gives an added dimension to your mushroom soup, makes it richer, more wholesome, and altogether very satisfying. So I melt the butter. Now when the butter is completely melted, then I throw in the onions. Now while I'm waiting for the butter to be melted, let me just introduce all the other ingredients in this recipe. Now over here, I've got some plain flour. Now unlike Chinese cooking or Asian cooking where we add a starch at the end to thicken a soup, most Western soups, we thicken the soup with what we call a roux, R-O-U-X, a roux. Now the purpose of this roux is to thicken the soup and getting the consistency that we want. Now actually when it comes to making the roux, there are 4 different types of roux. We have the very light, the white ones, which we're going to make today, the blonde, the brown, and the darker one. It all depends on the amount of time we cook the roux. Now in the meantime, I've just checked. Here my butter is now actually melting beautifully. It's got a nice light golden yellow color, which comes of course from the diet of the cows that feed on grass. So that comes from the chlorophyll, giving it a very rich nice color, very nice golden hue, as well as a very nice aroma. Now that most of the butter is melted, I'm going to throw in some onions. And so you see I've got the onions here. Alright, so I'm just waiting for the onions to soften a little. Now over here I've got some chopped mushrooms. You can use a combination of white and brown button mushrooms, fresh mushroom. The good thing about using fresh mushroom is that including the stalk, we can chop it up and use it in the soup, unlike the dried ones that we use for Chinese cooking, for example. And of course over here I've got some chicken stock. You can either cook your own, get your own chicken stock from cooking some soup bones, onions and carrots, or you can just buy the ready-made soup bases or chicken stock from the supermarket. That will make it a lot easier. And over here, of course, to me the most important ingredient is of course the Anchor culinary cream. Now the Anchor culinary cream is great for soups like this because it doesn't split when we cook it, and it doesn't, even when we reheat it, it makes the cooking very simple, very easy to achieve the texture that we want. So my suggestion is to use the culinary cream. Alright? Okay, now in the meantime, if you take a look at the onions, it's sizzling beautifully in the butter. Okay, so at this point, when it's sizzling, I'm going to add in all my flour and throw it into the pot all at one go. Alright, so then what you do is that stir it and cook it. Now cooking is important because we want to take out the raw taste out of the flour. So while we are using this as a thickener, it's important to cook it. The process will take about 5 minutes. Okay, if you cook for too long a time, then your roux will look a little bit more golden brown. And if you cook for like 20 minutes, it might just make your soup look even browner. So it's all really up to you. But at this time, I think 5 minutes will be sufficient. Now, it's really when the mixture thickens, as well as when you can actually smell the aroma, and it no longer tastes, or it no longer smells raw. Okay, so at this point you can see the color is still very light. Okay, so just cook it, stir it for a while, for at least about 5 minutes or so. Alright, once you achieve this, I am then going to add in my stock. Okay, now just before I add in the stock, I get my whisk ready, because this will make your job a lot easier. So a hand whisk will help us to achieve a smoother soup base. Okay, oops. Okay, all right, so here I have my soup, my chicken stock I mean. So I'm going to add in a bit at a time. Now don't throw in all the chicken stock at one go, because you might not be able to get rid of the lumps so easily. So control, okay, just I'm lowering my heat to about medium heat. Okay, and I'm going to add in the stock little by little, ensuring that each is smooth. Okay, before I add my next lot of chicken stock. So just stir it. Okay, you can see now it's pretty smooth, and then I'm going to add in more. Okay, so a little bit more to smoothen it. Okay, so now should something happen in the kitchen and your stock and your soup suddenly looks very lumpy, first thing to do is not to panic. Immediately you can use, for example, a hand blender to smoothen it out. But otherwise, we are doing quite well over here. So you see, once it looks smooth, I add in another lot of chicken stock. Okay, now this portion is going to serve at least about 8 to 10 people. So just the number we are allowed to gather during these COVID times in Singapore. But this is a soup that you would want to make it again and again for the family. So I cooked a lot of this, as I said, when my kids were growing up, and I would serve them, because a soup like this always warms you up, and it reminds you of home, of course. Okay, so there we have. Okay, so I'm going to just again. Now it's smoothing out quite well. Okay. So at this point, when I have it quite smooth, I'm going to add in my mushrooms. Okay, so I'm going to just put it in. Now I haven't added in all my stock. I just put it in just to sort of smoothen it, so that I have a little bit, so that it won't get burnt at the base. And when it's thickened, I add in my mushrooms and I stir it to cook out the raw musky smell of the mushroom. So just take a little bit of time. Anything that is worth doing takes time, and cooking from the heart for your family brings the family together. All right, and during the Christmas season and any other season in our lives, our loved ones are the most important. Okay, so I remember when I was growing up, I remember my grandmother cooking for us, and even though my grandmother is no longer around, every time when I eat a particular dish, it always reminds me of my grandma cooking that particular dish. So we are actually cooking and creating happy memories for our loved ones when we cook something like a hot pot of mushroom soup for the family. Okay, so here I am cooking a little while just to, okay, if you take a look at my mixture, okay, we have chopped the mushrooms quite finely, okay, and so in this case, I just cooked it out until I get a nice flavor coming out from the mushrooms instead of a very raw kind of musky smell. Okay, so alright, if you are tired, just take a, alright, just rest a little bit. Okay, count our blessings one by one. It's the end of the year. We've been through a very challenging time in our lives, the whole world actually. And as things, we pray that things will get better in the new year. And end of the year is also the time for us to reflect and give thanks for our blessings one by one. Okay, so alright, now if you are tired, just change chairs, go to the other side, or rope in some family members to help you. Okay, alright, here we have, I know the easy way would be to just open a can of ready mushroom soup, but it's different when you cook it from scratch and you use all the good ingredients in your dish, something wholesome and healthy. Alright. Now, as I mentioned, later on I'm going to thicken it with some Anchor culinary cream. Anchor culinary cream is made from the New Zealand cows, and it doesn't split when you add into hot soups and when you're trying to make sauces for your seafood baked rice, your baked macaroni, and you can reheat it a few times without it actually splitting. Okay, alright, now so over here you can see I'm now thickening it. Okay, so now it doesn't smell so raw. So what I'm going to do is to add in the rest of the chicken stock a little at a time. Okay, so I'm going to add this in. If you take a look at it, okay, see, it's looking good, right? Okay, okay. Okay, now just we're going to, alright, see, now it's pretty smooth and creamy and looks great, doesn't it? Okay, alright, we stir this. So we add the soup stock gradually, whisking all the time. Now this portion is of course quite big, so that's why it's taking a little bit more time. But at the end of it, this is going to feed a lot of people in your family. Okay. Now, and all the seasoning we need will be just a little bit of salt to taste, a little bit of thyme, and to give it a little bit of acidity, you can add in some little bit of lemon juice. That seems to perk up the soup. Okay, and there we have, it's coming to a boil. Okay, so we bring this to a boil once all the soup stock has been added. Okay, so all right. And of course, you can serve with some pepper okay, to taste. Okay, so now it's all added in already. Now we add the cream at the end to thicken the soup. Okay, and for this recipe, I'm going to use in the whole liter of cream. Of course, you can halve the recipe so that the cooking time is shorter. But as I said, this portion is going to feed a lot of people. Right? Wow, I've added all the chicken stock in, and you can see it's already simmering. At this point, I'm going to add in my carton of Anchor Culinary cream, and I'm going to just pour it in. Now this helps to thicken the soup and to give it a nice rounded and wholesome taste. Okay, so I'm going to add in the soup, stirring on, add in all the cream, stirring all the time. Now as mentioned, when you use Anchor Culinary cream, it doesn't split easily and gives a nice smooth, it doesn't curdle. At the same time, you can use it to also thicken your sauces. Any leftover culinary cream, you can store it in the fridge for a few weeks, but do not freeze the cream. Alright, so you see now it's looking really nice and delicious. I can smell the aroma from here. And this soup served piping hot will make our day. Alright, so there we have it. I'm going to add in some, alright, and I'm going to add in, and it's acid stable. If you take a look at what it says at the back of the carton, alright, you can reheat it. It's ideal for reheating chilled or frozen dishes, and it's very stable. It's heat acid stable, so even if you add lemon juice, which is what I'm going to do right now, to just pick up the juice, it's not going to split. At the same time, it's always consistently creamy, and so it's great to have this in stock in your home or in your shop or in a restaurant. Alright, so all we need is a little bit of salt, okay, to taste. Right, so add just some salt, some pepper, and a little bit of thyme. Okay, and and it's done. Alright, so let me just eat it through. Okay, before I serve it. Alright, so I've got here some garlic bread. All you need to do is just mince some garlic, mix it with Anchor butter, add a little bit of salt and some seasoning, a touch of spices or chopped fresh herbs, and spread it over your bread to go with the garlic, and toast it in the oven for about 5 minutes till fragrant and crisp. And this goes well with our soup. Okay, so it's done, and I'm going to just serve you in this. Okay, I'm going to just serve this. All right, let me just put this in the sink, and there we have our soup. Okay, so over here. Okay, loaded with goodness, vitamins, and all things delicious, and it feels really good when you have some hot soup served. And there we have this. Okay, and of course it's Christmas time. All right, have your soup, your garlic bread, and give thanks. See you again, and blessed Christmas.